All right, all right. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to another episode from the PGx Accelerator group. My name is Dr. DeLon Canterbury, and we also have the wonderful Dr. Howard McLeod today, another co-founder of the PGx Accelerator team. What's going on, Howard? How are you
Hey,
holding up?
DeLon, great to see you. Congrats, by the way, on the great stuff you're doing with the prescribing network and all that
Yeah.
geriatric stuff. It's really fantastic to see all the benefits these patients are getting, and certainly talking to you in the context of PGx Accelerator. Same thing, platform for patients, just to really for practitioners rather, just to really help their patients in a big way.
Absolutely, man. And I learned from the best. For those who may not have known, I actually went to school with Howard. He taught me what the heck pharmacogenomics was before it was even cool. So it was one of my favorite electives in school. And it introduced me to a wonderful world, even when I was in SNAFA and trying to lead some of his PCORI initiatives. So we had a ball at UNC talking about the wonders of PGX. And now we're bringing that expertise straight to your doors today. And so, like a lot of you, we get tons of questions in our inboxes on ways to really get things started when it comes to starting their PGX practice. They don't know where to turn, they don't know where to go. And so, we with the PGX Accelerator group are here today to share with you some easy tips that we can use or you can use today to really start leveling up your business. So we've been there, we've been the hard way, we've made the same mistakes. We don't want you to do that either. So don't waste time trying to figure out doing it by yourself. Have a group of people who have vetted experts who've been in the game and successfully roll out PGX. And so, one tactic I absolutely wanted to share with you all, and just so you know, Jamie couldn't make it today. She's also living her best life on a Friday, but she is definitely here in spirit. All right. So we are all co-founded this amazing PGX Accelerator. And so the first tip I did want to share with you all were some simple tactics you can really start employing today. For me, I knew that I was, of course, a geriatric pharmacist, but I wasn't sure how to roll the world of PGX into my comprehensive med review. And so at first, I was kind of just doing a free for all. Like I was just like, all right, whoever wants a PGX test can get it. All right. I can target patients, I can target providers, I can work with a local pharmacy if they want another service. And so I didn't really know who to focus in on. And so eventually in my practice, one thing I found helpful was really getting very specific to who your target audience is and who your ideal client is. So when you're starting off in your journey, don't fall for all the glittering lights of going for everything under the sun. You
Yeah.
have to really perfect one amazing thing and really roll with that and see how that works best for you. So in my practice, I actually focused more on targeting patients versus, say, some who target providers or maybe pharmacies. You can do all the above, but you got to choose one. So don't fall victim. And I tell you, Howard, I went back and forth for months. Like, where do I want to go? Like, do I want to target
Yeah.
them? How do I use the right verbiage? Because if you don't know who you're going for, you're not going to know, one, how to communicate in the language that they're going to receive the value that you're delivering. So providers aren't going to want to know the same details as patients who get their PGX test, right? What are
Right.
your thoughts about that, Howard? What have you kind of seen in that space?
Well, and one of the things from that is narrow doesn't mean narrow. So if you are helping geriatric patients, you're helping them across the spectrum of chronic illnesses they might have, the
Mm-hmm.
acute illnesses that might crop up. You're still helping them broadly, but
Yeah.
you have a group of patients that you know will be a high yield where you have something to offer. Same thing whether it's psychiatry patients, oncology
Mm-hmm.
patients, whatever the area is. There's a need to think about the whole patient. And
Mm-hmm.
so, oncology is an area where I've spent some of my energy. We have to think about controlling their cancer, sure, but what about their pain? What about their depression? What about their antiemetics, both for for surgery and for chemo? What about the need for antiplatelet drugs, etc. The whole thing is there. And so when talk about finding your niche, it ends up being a deep niche because the needs for the patient really open up. And, with the testing approaches that are there, you can really comment on a lot of different aspects of a patient's care. But it does provide an opportunity to say, well, where shall I start? I know people who have started in a very narrow area, very subspecialty, and then gradually have expanded out because they got up to speed with what they could do. Other opportunities opened up. There's others that have stayed in that niche for the whole time.
Right.
And either of those are the right answer. Finding out what's going to work for you and then just being really good at it is the key thing.
Absolutely. Yo, it's spot on, because I tell you, in my first few months of trying to figure out what am I going to do with my company, Geriatrics, and putting PGx into place, when you have older patients, we know they have tons of morbidities. They got chronic pain, they got other risk factors, and you're not quite sure how to really roll it in. But it makes it a little bit easier when you see the interplay between different disease states and different approaches to care and management. So that's been a huge selling point to me. And in my space, I do like to emphasize the need for more equity when it comes to our older demographics. They tend to be left out of the PGx talk. And so it got me into thinking, maybe I could partner with some of these nursing homes. Maybe I could work with some of these adult daycare centers and provide PGx as a service or as an added value service. And that has been blowing up for me. So getting that niche down was what helped me develop my brand in this space, and helped get that trust to providers who now can refer other patients as well and keep the momentum going. So we nailed it, right? Niching down is really, really critical here. And even though it may be broad in essence, you still have to know the language of who you're marketing to in order to really convey the value that's there. So what's one that comes to your mind, Howard? Anything that came up to you in your journey in PGx?
Yeah, so I mentioned the oncology example was certainly an important one, and broadened things out, for me as well. There's been some other areas. For example, the rheumatoid arthritis is a very underappreciated area in need of pharmacogenomics. And you think, well, most of these TNF blockers, we don't have genetic markers for them. Well, that's true. But we do for a lot of the drugs that are used there. Of course, for pain control, whether it's an NSAID or one of the oxycodone, et cetera, family. Whether you're looking at the uric acid drugs, some of those have pharmacogenomic markers of interest. Plus, these patients have usually other chronic diseases. And so you're just looking across the areas of need. Often people will start with family medicine. That might be the right place to start. But you also might find that there's a rheumatologist or a transplant surgeon or whatever it might be who really needs the help, who really wants to partner, and then you can move forward. And so I think part of it is stepping back and saying, all right, where's the opportunity? There's so much unmet need that often we especially as pharmacists, it's easy to freak out that we want to be perfect at everything. Well, let's be good at a lot of things. Let's be great at a few things, and maybe be exceptional at one thing. So saying, wait, what's my area? And if you live in an area where there's fresh fish, then you think about putting fish in your diet. If you live where I live in the mountains, it's certainly not going to be fresh saltwater fish. They might be flown in, but they're not going to be fresh. And so you think about other ways of feeding yourself. And so same thing with these areas for pharmacogenomics.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I think you summed it up perfectly. We mentioned first tactic that you guys can really start using right now in your PGx practice is really getting specific to who your ideal audience and target market is. Getting that down is going to be able to help you build the type of verbiage you'll use when you start marketing to these providers. Another thing that comes up along these lines with just speaking about providers is, Howard, you do extensive work in PGx. I mean, there's a reason you're the father of pharmacogenomics, but what does it look like to know how to really sell yourself to providers? What do they want to know?
Well, and we have to think about what does the patient need? What does the provider need? Don't think about what you know and what you can say. So I have found that there are very few physicians and very few patients for that matter that really care to know the difference between CYP2D6 and CYP2C19. I mean, those are things that we like to say, and it makes us sound like we're on a Star Wars or something. But the reality is, they just want to know what to do. They want to know where there's a landmine to avoid. They want to know where there's trouble that they maybe can't avoid but have to tackle head on. They want to know amongst the options that are available, which ones are there. And so we've found that almost less is more. So when you're talking with the providers, identify the problem that they're trying to solve, not your problem, but their problem trying to solve, and then make sure you convey actionable recommendations to them. Because we see it so often that you want to give the history of cytochrome P450s.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, very few people want to know that, much less need to know that. And so a lot of the language is really saying, well, what do you need? What do we have? Time is the biggest enemy of most physicians. Not that it's a big favor to pharmacists either, but most physicians, they want to know quickly and precisely what is it they need to do. They can always come back to you for more help or ask questions. But starting with that clear focus, they'll be thanking you now and later because of the language that you've spoken.
That makes so much sense. We know COVID has not been nice to any healthcare provider, so everyone is strapped for time and resources. And at the same time, they still have metrics to meet. So you, as being that value-added clinical pharmacist, can jump right in, know the lingo, know the verbiage, and literally use that as a way to get into doors of providers. I'm in a geriatric space. If I'm able to show, hey, from managing these opioids better with these PGx results, we can reduce falls. We can reduce potential harm. We can reduce potential readmission. We can show that this statin is not appropriate. That's the lingo they need to hear so that, one, they don't get dinged on their reimbursements, and two, their patients end up better. So again, the lingo, the narrative, the language providers want to hear is, how does this save me time? How does this save me money? And how does this make my life easy? That is what you have to really, really niche down. So I think you make some good points, Howard. That's amazing. So good deal. So we mentioned the importance of getting our language in play for providers. That's super, super critical. I've definitely had to do that. In fact, in this space, people who are working this, they still know that providers have no clue what a PGx really is. So before you go down the whole nine of the history of pharmacogenomics and fava beans, let's talk about literally the importance of what is relevant today. So pharmacists, do not get stuck in that zone of analysis paralysis and trying to oversell. Stick to the easy stuff. Stick to the facts. That really makes life easy. So
we're often thinking about, we need to put a heavy weight on one side or the other of the scale in order to tip it in the patient's favor. Often it's a feather that will tip it adequately to there. And so rather than come off as a knowledgeable but blunt instrument, being able to convey that, hey, this patient, for reasons I can go into if you want me to, would benefit from a lower dose of X or a different drug change. They're used to hearing that from pharmacy. They're used to that kind of advice. They're happy that you know about genomics, but really they just want to know what to do. And so I think that's, it's the challenge is really on the pharmacist as you're converting into a practice. We all talk about pharmacy wanting to do more clinical. Well, it means we have to convert from a distribution mindset and really thinking about things from the inside of a pharmacy to thinking about how do we help clinic in clinic. Not how do we help clinic from the basement or from the community pharmacy.
Right. I mean, aptly said. So you kind of touched on a little bit of what really the final point I wanted to share that I had to change for myself, which again comes down to that mindset. I wasn't even thinking about what the provider wants to hear. I was kind of just like, hey, here's what I can do. And I went down the whole list of XYZ. But the mindset you have to have when you start going out there and believing in yourself, not doubting your expertise, not wondering if I only had 2 days of my certificate, is that enough for me to start going out there? The answer is yes. And we as pharmacists love to get in our own heads. And so it took me a good year to really get solid and confident in one. But lastly, unlike most people who are going to be benefiting from our PGx Accelerator group, I didn't have a network of amazing Jamie Wilkies and Howard McLeods and Benazes and Sue Pauls lying around. I've had amazing mentors, but I didn't have a network. And so I didn't know who to ask. And to this day, I'm still asking these people questions like, hey, how do I go about taking care of this test or getting things done? And it's really critical to have that network, that people who have your back, you know what I'm saying? I did not
Yep.
have that at all.
Yeah, that's so important. We ventured in a while ago a phase of medicine where there's just too much information to keep up with. There's a lot of nuances that some encounter where others wouldn't, depending on their practice. There's such a benefit for having people to bounce things off of. And I've been doing this a few years longer than you. I still have go-to people that have my back. That can go and say, all right, we're thinking about doing this. What do we think about that? Being able to discuss it. Many of the folks that are starting a pharmacogenomics clinical program are the only one in their county or the only one in their city or the only one in their region. And they really need to be part of something where they not only can get some benefits in terms of making good choices about which lab and finding insurance and electronic medical record, et cetera, but really having a group of people they can rely on. And that sort of thing is critical, because there's too much opportunity and too much at stake to simply rely on yourself all of the time. And so if we really want to help patients and help our physician colleagues and nurse practitioners, PAs, et cetera, we need to be up on our game, but then also have the rest of a team behind us to really keep us at the place we need to be.
So true. Oh my gosh. I mean, you're actually speaking to me right now. I'm like, man, my first year and a half, I honestly had a lot of pride. I didn't even want to ask anyone for help. I was like, no, I'll figure it out. I'm a pharmacist. I know. And it actually bit me in the butt later, because there were so many ways I could have maneuvered some pitfalls I've had in this space or mistakes I may have done. And luckily it wasn't detrimental, but it's something that could have been completely avoided had I asked, and really stymied some of that pride I had in the beginning phases of getting into PGx. So I still have phone of friends all day, every day. They are so necessary. But I love that that's what we're providing with this group, is that we're giving the peace of mind.
And having that safe place. I think, at standing up and asking a question at a national meeting is not necessarily the safest place to really learn these things. But having an environment where one can be asking these questions, and because what I found, people say, oh, there's no such thing as a dumb answer. Well, that's true, but even when there's a question that is something that I've had to solve many years ago, I still learn from it, because the context in which it's being asked helps me think, okay, what do we need to do differently? Maybe the answer that I've had as my go-to answer, is it still the right answer? Is it, because we're in a dynamic space, and certainly, the way we handle it is by making sure we're around dynamic people that can really keep us going and make sure we get the most out of these opportunities.
Man, nailed it. So guys, Howard, you heard it straight from the father of pharmacogenomics. We talked about number one, niching down your market, knowing who your audience is, who you're targeting. Are you going for patients, providers, pharmacies? Are you going for medical offices, psych units, geriatric units, whatever? But you got to speak the language as well, which is tip number two, that your providers are looking for. You want to convey that value immediately and not give them a soap note of problems and then tell them a solution later, right? And then lastly, you gotta leverage your network. And we are giving you that network with our PGx group, which unfortunately wasn't there when I was starting, but I know it'll be valuable for you guys trying to get into this space and have a phone a friend connect nearby. So hopefully this was helpful for you all. I learned a ton, as always, from Howard, but I love showing that, guys, you don't need to make the same mistakes that we did. I want you guys to have it easy. And so that is why we started the PGx Accelerator with Jamie, Howard, and of course myself, DeLon. So I hope you guys found some value today. Stay tuned for more. We got more tips along the way over the next 3 weeks and more videos. If you haven't, comment below. What was your best takeaway from today's conversation? And be sure to definitely follow and subscribe to our PGx Accelerator page. All right. You guys have a fantastic weekend. Howard, you guys take care. All right. See you
Great
next
to
time.
see you, DeLon. Talk to you soon.
Later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.